So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the International Institute for Strategic Studies. My name is Bill Emmott, and I have the honor of being chairman of the trustees of the IISS, but also I have a long-standing interest in and affection for Japan, and so I'm also delighted here to be introducing Minister Nishimura today. I should mention that I'm also chair of the Japan Society of the UK, and in that capacity I'm especially proud also to welcome Minister Nishimura here to the IISS. Nishimura Yasutoshi has been a member of the lower house of the Diet, the House of Representatives, since 2003, representing the Hyogo district in Kansai. Previously, he was an official at the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. Therefore, he took, like what has been a traditional path in Japanese politics, from the University of Tokyo law faculty into METI, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, and then into politics in 2003. He has previously been Minister of State for Economic and Fiscal Policy, and now has been Minister for Economy, Trade and Industry since 2022. Most importantly, for reasons that you will begin to understand as he gives his remarks, he is also a former president of the Japan Boxing Association. I just want you to know what kind of man you have sat here before you. UK-Japan relations are an important preoccupation of mine. At the Japan Society every year, we have a lecture from the British ambassador to our members here in London, British ambassador to Japan, and every year, routinely, the ambassador does their job by saying that UK-Japan relations are better than they have ever been before. The question has always been how meaningful that evaluation has been, and I think it's fair to say that in recent years that evaluation has become meaningful in a very, very significant way. We see this year, with Britain joining the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, the first new member since the CPTPP was formed. We saw an important agreement signed by the prime ministers of our two countries in May of this year, in the wings of the G7 summit in Hiroshima, therefore known as the Hiroshima Accord, in May of this year. And most importantly, we have the Joint Combat Air Project, the major piece of defense technological development that is being done by three countries: Japan, the UK, and Italy. So it's against that background, with an enormous shared interest in economic security, in issues to do with critical minerals, issues to do with de-risking versus decoupling, that we welcome Minister Nishimura here today. Minister Nishimura is going to give his formal remarks first, and then I will ask him a few questions, because as a former journalist, I'm always rather keen to ask questions. But most important, I will then open to the audience to invite you to ask your questions. So please prepare them as you listen, of course, to Minister Nishimura, who I welcome to the platform.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Chairman Emmott, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I would also like to thank all the members of the audience for allowing me the opportunity to address you today. The UK is, in fact, the first foreign country I ever visited almost 40 years ago. The UK is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, which changed the world. For me, having just made up my mind at the time to work for the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, the UK was a place that I absolutely wanted to see once for myself. At the same time, as I aspired to pursue a career in politics someday, the United Kingdom, the country that had contributed so significantly to the development of modern democracy, was a place of great fascination for me. I saw the magnificent Buckingham Palace and the National Gallery, whose exhibit weave a history almost from time immemorial. For a young person, around 20 years old at that time, everything was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. I also had fish and chips at a pub. I happened upon one night just after crossing London Bridge. I had trained long and hard as a student boxer, and for my physique at that time, it was just superb. If I can find time, I'm actually thinking of heading off later tonight to try to find that very same pub, the pub of my memories. But I think I need to pass on the late night fish and chips since it will lie a bit heavy in my stomach now that my boxing days are done. Now the UK is also the cradle of boxing. The history of battling things out with one fist can be traced back to ancient Greece. The bouts of the time lasted until one side could fight no further. It seems they would battle it out until the very end. But it wouldn't do to carry that too far, nor should we allow such cowardly tactics as pummeling an opponent who was down. It was none other than the United Kingdom that established the boxing as a modern sport, systematizing various rules bit by bit to ensure the bouts are always conducted in a fair manner. Quite the contrary, had these rules not been created in the UK, then boxing will be nothing more than just people duking it out, no holds barred. It would never have survived as a sport. And had I personally not had the chance to be involved in the sport of boxing, it may be that my life as a politician would not have been able to take undaunted so many blows over the years. Looking at it this way, we get the impression that it was hardly a coincidence that it was here in London that the legal scholar Oppenheim established at the beginning of the 20th century the fundamental approach to international law that remains in use even to the present day. Generally speaking, the role of rules is to make a system permanent by ensuring fairness and avoiding a race to the bottom. It is a rule of law that serves as a very cornerstone of world peace and prosperity. This is what then Prime Minister Abe Shinzo was trying to say 9 years ago at the IISS Shangri-La Dialogue. Compliance with international rules, including freedom of the high seas, enable every nation, large or small, to benefit equally from those rules. The vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific Prime Minister Abe advocated for has also taken its shape grounded in the rule of law. At that time, from the podium at the Shangri-La Hotel, Prime Minister Abe appealed to the world for 3 principles. These are that all disputes must be settled first, without force or coercion, second, based on international law, and third, by peaceful means. Now, some of you might be thinking that all the principles I have stated thus far are quite obvious. However, in today's world, what was once as plain as the nose on your face is no longer a simple matter of course. And therein lies a very sizable problem indeed. Consider Russian aggression against Ukraine. This is a clear challenge to the rule of law. Japan will decisively make every possible effort to assist the people of Ukraine, who are at the very moment battling courageously to defend the independence of the homeland and protect the families they love. This is because Japan believes, as Prime Minister Kishida often states, Ukraine today, maybe East Asia tomorrow. I wish to express my great respect to you at the IISS for the tremendous contributions you have made to regional peace and stability by having created in the Indo-Pacific region over close to 20 years the venue for dialogue among those involved in various countries' security, known as the IISS Shangri-La Dialogue. And yet, regardless of those efforts you have made last month, a Philippine boat transporting supplies in South China Sea was subjected to obstructive acts by a Chinese Coast Guard ship deploying a water cannon. This is not a tale of old from the 19th or 20th centuries, but rather something that just took place a few days ago. The world seas, spanning from the Indo-Pacific to the Atlantic, must be free and open. This is a fundamental thinking underpinning the Japan-UK Hiroshima Accord that our leaders agreed this past May. We cannot, under any circumstances, tolerate encroachment upon established freedom of the high seas or unilateral changes to the status quo by force. Mr. Robert Ward, the IISS Japan Chair, is unfortunately not here with us today, but as his report analyzes with extraordinary accuracy, the security environment surrounding the Indo-Pacific region is becoming increasingly severe. Over the last 30 years, China has increased its military spending to a level almost 40 times what it used to be. Cases of Chinese military aircraft intrusions into Taiwanese airspace have skyrocketed over the past 2 to 3 years to 4 times previous levels. And North Korea has repeatedly engaged in nuclear development and has also launched ballistic missiles in violation of relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. The international order based on the rule of law, which has served as the cornerstone of global peace and prosperity thus far, is now facing considerable challenges. Confronted with such a reality, we must continue to uphold the universal values of freedom, democracy, basic human rights, and the rule of law. It is precisely for that reason that we must achieve evolution. This is the point I want to convey to you most emphatically today. I'm a politician who values traditions, but the world will change whether we want it or not. In light of that, we ourselves also need to change in order to continue to protect what we hold dear. To borrow expression from Darwin, the great British natural scientist, if we are to emerge victorious in the struggle for existence, we need to achieve evolution. I'm determined for us to do just that. In the world of security, that evolution means a fundamental reinforcement of our deterrence. More than a year and a half have passed since aggression was waged on Ukraine. and there are concerns that the situation will be further prolonged. Once a nuclear weapon state has launched military action, it is extremely difficult to bring that action to a stop. This is something we now feel very acutely. And should that nation also be a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations will fail to function properly, making it even more difficult to resolve the conflict. Therefore, we must not allow conflict to start in the first place. The need to deter conflicts before they ever get traction is beginning greater than ever. Armed conflicts begin from misunderstandings or overconfidence regarding others' intentions or actual capabilities. Now, authoritarian countries are deepening their confidence in their own military might. It is essential for us to solidly build up our deterrence capabilities. For that reason, at the end of 2022, Japan revised 3 documents related to its national security, thereby taking a major step forward towards a new evolution. We will significantly change the national security policies we have had in place until now, and we will possess and strengthen counter-strike capabilities. We took the decision to fundamentally reinforce our defense capabilities such that in fiscal 2027, we will roughly double the defense budget level we have had until now. Moreover, we need a kind of evolution in which it would not be Japan alone, but rather Japan joining hands with countries with which we share universal values, making the circle of the chain of deterrence both bigger and stronger. Under the Abe administration, Japan changed the constitutional interpretation it had previously maintained, allowing for the partial exercise of the rights of collective self-defense. The Japan-US alliance is now more solid than it has ever been. Here in Europe as well, we will jointly develop next-generation fighter aircraft in cooperation with Italy, the UK. Furthermore, this year, we concluded the Japan-UK reciprocal access agreement. As Prime Minister Sunak said in his statement after the signing this agreement, cements the UK's commitment to the Indo-Pacific and accelerates our defense cooperation. Japan and the UK will join hands to reinforce our deterrence capabilities and fulfill our weighted responsibilities regarding the peace and prosperity of the international community. It is precisely in order to defend the universal values we share that in the national security realm, we should press our significant evolution further forward. Number 10 Downing Street evaluated our reciprocal access agreement as the most important defense treaty between the UK and Japan since 1902, the year the Anglo-Japanese alliance was concluded. This year marks exactly a century since the old Anglo-Japanese alliance expired. The alliance underwent 3 rounds of revisions over the span of a little more than 20 years, but there was one thing written in its preamble, other than security, that stayed consistent in every version. It was that one of the purposes of the alliance was securing equal opportunities for the commerce and industry of all nations. Ever since ancient times, the economy and security have been inseparable. The failure to maintain fairness with the economy has often been a spark setting off conflicts. Establishing a free and fair economic order lowers the risk of such conflicts and thus holds great geopolitical significance. Under the CPTPP, countries sharing universal values work to develop economic rules for a new era, spanning labor, the environment, and more. In this way, the CPTPP is also an effort to build a foundation for regional peace and prosperity. Japan extends its greatest possible welcome to the UK's official participation in the agreement. When the UK made its application to join the pact, Japan was the chair of the CPTPP Commission on Accession, and I was the minister in charge of the matter at that time. As the one who led the discussions on accepting at an early time the UK's application for accession, I'm truly moved to see the final entry of the UK into the CPTPP. Going forward, Japan and the UK will share the great responsibility of leading this framework as the largest and the second largest economic powers within the membership. With the UK joining in, we'll together build up a free and fair economic area. The geopolitical significance of that is tremendous, and therein lies the most important benefit of the agreement. Moreover, through the accession of the UK, the CPTPP expands to an enormous economic zone having an economic scale of £12 trillion, covering 15% of global GDP and a population of more than 500 million people. I believe it's our young people who will be the driving force opening up the future. The participation of the UK, which boasts a global preeminent intellectual foundation that includes Oxford and Cambridge universities, among others, will foster further peace and prosperity for the region through active exchanges among young people. I'm also confident that the presence of the City of London, the largest financial center in the world, will also spur new momentum towards the growth of the CPTPP economic zone. The very first negotiations on the TPP began 15 years ago. At the beginning of the 2000s, Japanese, US, and European manufacturers accounted for 90% of the share of solar panel manufacturing globally. That has now become 80% reliance of Chinese manufacturers. 15 years ago, who could have foreseen such a shift? In responding to the issue of climate change, time is of the essence. We must bring about a net zero society without fail. I shared my determination in this regard at the G7 ministers meeting on climate, energy, and environment held this April, which I chaired. At the same time, we cannot bury our heads in the sand in denial of Chinese-made electric vehicles currently sweeping through global markets, including Europe. China's automobile exports have risen explosively over the past 2 or 3 years, and there are even forecasts that this year, China will export over 4 million vehicles, growing past Japan to become the top automobile exporter in the world. Let me state this clearly to avoid any misunderstanding. I am not saying that dependence on China is a problem. It is being overly dependent on any one particular country, be it China or be it any other country, that constitutes a risk. And we need to press forward with de-risking. That is my message here. Of course, In this world, in which we have reached such a high degree of mutual interdependence, it would be impossible to achieve anything like a complete decoupling. And yet, consider those solar panels and electric vehicles. Consider also batteries, semiconductors, critical minerals, and pharmaceuticals. Relying on only one particular country for critical supplies indispensable for our daily lives creates a risk that is absolutely enormous. This is something we learned firsthand from COVID-19 and the aggression against Ukraine. This is something that 15 years ago, no one even imagined. Therefore, even with the CPTPP, we cannot afford to stand still. In order to press forward with de-risking and ensure economic security, it is imperative for us to further evolve the international economic order. It was under that approach that today we launched the Japan-UK Strategic Economic Policy and Trade Dialogue, which brings together under one roof Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, and the UK's Department for Business and Trade, Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, and Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. While there are any number of topics I could take up, I will mention two major ones here. The first is innovation. In May, Japan and the UK released a joint statement on semiconductors partnership, where we're engaged in joint research and development and other initiatives. At the G7 summit, we agreed on the Hiroshima AI process, and I intend for Japan to strengthen our cooperation with the UK, which will hold an AI summit this year. In this field of energy as well, during this visit, I plan to conclude with the UK government a memorandum on cooperation for a new high-temperature gas-cooled reactor project. In May, we issued the Japan-UK joint statement on renewable energy partnership, whereby we will also cooperate in research and development in such a state-of-the-art fields as offshore wind power. Our promising candidate is perovskite solar cells, a technology for manufacturing solar panels using iodine as a raw material rather than silicon. Iodine is originally found in seawater and is a resource distributed widely around the globe. Japan currently holds a close to 30% share of global production, and we also enjoy abundant reserves. This is an innovation that has the potential to be a game changer, possibly enabling us to break free from reliance on one particular country in this area of solar panels, and Japan very much wants to work in partnership with the UK in this area. This ties in very closely towards the issue. That issue is whether or not in the area of critical goods, we will be able to break away from over-dependence on one particular country and build resilient supply chains. To ensure a stable supply of critical minerals, last month I visited 5 African nations, including the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Secretary Badenoch and I agreed to advance our cooperation to promote joint investment in third countries. Our partnership with the Global South will be a major key for enhancing the resiliency of our supply chains. However, even if we promote diversification of supply at the mining stage, the fact is that there is still a high degree of dependence on one particular country during the refining and processing stages. Making responses that consider the entirety of the supply chain a matter of great urgency. So why is it that we have such a high degree of dependence on one particular country? The answer is a simple one. The country's products are superior to ours in terms of cost competitiveness. They are cheaper. That's why. However, the competitiveness, that low pricing may perhaps be the result of tremendous amounts of state subsidies. And if costs are being controlled by releasing the burden into the environment, that is not something we can overlook. We believe there must not be any forced labor within our supply chains. In that sense, if we haven't ensured a level playing field, then we cannot call it fair competition. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan made a speech in April about the new Washington Consensus. I believe we must uphold the free trade regime centered on the WTO, yet at the same time, we must create an international economic order that is fairer and more suitable, sustainable for all, in response to social imperativeness such as climate change and human rights. We must make such that within our markets, demands arise specifically for products that are sustainable. That means even if the sticker price might be nominally high during production, carbon dioxide emissions and the other burdens released into the global environment are reduced, while the rights of workers are protected and no human rights violations occur throughout the supply chain. In addition, the stable supply is ensured even if some sort of disruption arises. Towards that end, we need to consider new industrial policies that work to stimulate demand for, as one example, critical goods produced in a sustainable way, fulfilling international standards in terms of environmental, labor, and human rights, and other considerations. These could include bold purchase incentives, as well as preferential treatment during government procurement. These are policies designed to restore a level playing field and bring about fair competition. I hope to move forward on this in concert with like-minded countries, including the UK, the US, and the EU. In order to make substantial progress on de-risking all in one push, I think we'll need the huge market of like-minded countries together to evolve simultaneously. The term level playing field, of course, comes from the world of sport. The long-awaited Rugby World Cup begins this week. And on the 17th, Japan will clash with England as teams in the same pool. Although I hesitate somewhat to say this in front of you all, I'm most definitely rooting for Japan to win. But for whatever the outcome in rugby, when the match is over, it is no side. Praising others is one of the traditions. That is a result derived from the deep felt sense that both sides play to the very best of their abilities under rules that are fair. 4 years ago, I visited Twickenham Stadium, sacred ground in rugby. I remember standing on the ground, completely enveloped in silence, feeling very acutely the whiteness of the tradition that span more than a century. The UK, which has helped cultivate many sports over its long history, has always emphasized fairness and placed great importance on the rule of law. Japan is also a country sharing such values that want to join forces with the UK to contribute to the peace and prosperity of the world. I am confident that the strengthening of Japan-UK relations over these last few years in terms of both security and the economy in ways that can properly be called a new Anglo-Japanese alliance has contributed towards that end. I'd like to end my remarks today with the words of Lord Salisbury, the UK Prime Minister when the Anglo-Japanese alliance was concluded in 1902. The commonest error in politics is sticking to the carcass of dead policies. It is precisely because we want to protect the values we hold dear that we must continually work to make our policies evolve. Let us press forward together on this matter. Japan and the UK and the partners are the partners best suited to do this. We are truly in a new Japan-UK alliance for evolution. Why don't we start calling our Japan-UK partnership by that name? I look forward to celebrating this new voyage here with all of you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for a very clear and inspiring set of remarks about our alliance and partnership. We now have just 10 minutes for questions, so I will be very brisk. I want to give an opportunity very much to you in the room to come up with your questions. The Minister is, I think, going to, for speed reasons and clarity reasons, to answer questions in Japanese this time, but there are translation devices at your desks. Maybe the first question that I should ask is just to ask you a little more about your plans for this alliance. It's interesting, of course, in a security studies institute to have this word alliance, but what you are proposing is something a bit different from the 1902 alliance that you celebrated. It's about collaboration on various fields, and I'd like to ask you to expand a little on two of them that you mentioned. One, what kind of alliance, what do you expect from the alliance inside the CPTPP? What will Japan and the UK do together? And secondly, expand a little about semiconductors. You talked about that partnership. Last week you unveiled a new plant in Hokkaido with a big amount of Japanese government funding, but also private sector funding. The UK wasn't there. Where is the UK in terms of an alliance on semiconductors? Please, Minister.
Well, thank you very much for your question. You talked about the alliance. Well, first of all, as I said to you before, between Japan and UK, we have RAA. And in terms of security, we have a much advanced progress made. And also in GCAP, we are working together on jointly developing next fighter. So in terms of security, we have a very good strengthened partnership and cooperation. On top of that, we have a CPTPP, and the UK will be taking formally part in it. And international economic order and economic security, in terms of these perspectives between Japan and UK, our relationship will be much more enhanced and strengthened. And we are really at a turning point in history and era, and the concept of economic security is something new. CPTPP have to evolve as well. And also, we have to think about the international order, how we can get evolved as well. Reliable partner is something we are looking for. We are the ones for each other, reliable partner to each other, Japan and UK. We share the fundamental values together, and strategically, we do have a very good importance. We have a long number of histories, and that kind of country, Japan and UK, can work together to build a new order into the future. So in this meaning, I said the Alliance for Evolution. CPTPP will get evolved. That is a necessity. Concept of economic security can be incorporated, and together with the trustworthy partners, we will build the supply chain where we can manage it together, and they help each other in normal times as well. Do a joint development and jointly make a resilient supply chain. So in that score, Japan and UK will work together in reality. And in terms of rulemaking, the presence of UK is very big. And with regard to semiconductors, well, in the past, Japan used to enjoy a 50% share, but now our share is down to 10% globally. However, when it comes to materials and the manufacturing equipment for semiconductor, we still have a strength in Japan, and there are pioneers areas like state-of-the-art semiconductors. We are trying to make it. That's why much Japanese government funding is coming in. We are cooperating with the United States and EU because we cannot do it alone, and we are more than willing to work together with the UK, of course. And of course, with regard to UK, there are excellent universities and research institutes. That's one thing, your strength. And secondly, in terms of life science and so forth, look at the use case of semiconductors. It can be built up, which holds a big presence and importance. Going forward, state-of-the-art things have to be made, but that should be beneficial for the sake of the world. Autonomous driving, 5Gs, as well as 6Gs, AI, quantum. There are so many new technologies which are bound to come up. And one of the major things of which is life science. And I have a big expectations on UK on this together with Japanese businesses. So we hope state-of-the-art semiconductors can be used to create a new drug, new pharmaceuticals. I really hope that you do have a foundation for research already and the industry as well. So we are more than ready to work together with the UK.
Thank you very much. Let me, I'll open to the audience to some questions. I saw already Lord Trenchard from the House of Lords with a long Japan background. If I may, a microphone coming in your direction. I've already introduced you, so therefore you saved your time.
Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you very much, Minister, for your most impressive speech. Within your vision for the evolution of the second or new Anglo-Japanese alliance, or can we call it the Shin Nichie Dome? I'm not sure whether you can use the word Dome or not. But within your ambition for our developing relationship, do you see the prospect of AUKUS becoming JAUKUS and the Five Eyes becoming the Six Eyes? How strong are those two possibilities?
Hi.
Well, thank you for your question. You talked about the alliance. In terms of security, of course, we use the word domain or alliance, but it's not that we have concluded a treaty on that or something like that. It's not in that sense. We do have a RAA, and there is a GCAP joint development that will be go on. And the next fighter will be jointly developed with the UK. So in this way, we have a very much deepened, strengthened relationship. Look at responses to DPRK in cooperation with the UK and their contribution. It's been a big deal. In terms of military we speak about alliance, the alliance I'm talking about is not that kind of alliance, a kind of a quasi-alliance, which can be comparable to the alliance in terms of economy, as we say it in security. And there is economic security on the economic front. Like CPTPP, we are to make rules together. And within a group of countries in the world, Japan and UK, within CPTPP, are number one and second largest economies. We are here to take lead and make an example and make a jointly the resilient supply chain, and within which alliance for evolution will fit very nicely. That's why I spoke about it today. In terms of security, as well as in terms of economic security, militarily and economic security, information is very important. Information can be shared. Five Eyes. As a member, if we can become a member of Five Eyes, it will be very nice for Japan, as I see it. But this is only my personal view, mind you. So it's not that Japanese government has made a big move or anything like that. The thing I like to stress is the importance of information in various different ways, including satellite and so forth. We are gathering information on our own. And in terms of economy, we have a wealth of information gathered. Information of Asia is something that we can share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. A question there. Yes, please. Just back there, yeah.
Thank you so much, Minister Nishimura, for the excellent speech. Today, I talked to my...
Actually, can you introduce yourself?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Minako Moritoyuka, University of Sussex.
Yes, great expert on trade.
Yes, I'm a trade policy expert. Today, I talked to my son that I'm going to meet the Minister of Economy and Trade of Japan, and he showed that what? And he did not react, but I said, I'm going to meet a boxer, strong boxer, and he said, wow, I'm envy you. So he really, looking for, I have to show you a photo once I go back home. I have two questions. One is about the role of the UK and Japan in the framework of the CPTPP. As you said, the resilient supply chain is very important, and then the CPTPP has to be evolved. But on the other hand, the second, the waiting list of acceding CPTPP, China, how would you like to just promote cooperation between the UK and Japan in terms of China's accession to the CPTPP in relation with building resilient supply chain with the alliance? The second question is the relation between the economic security and then free market principle. That is industrial policy, also the free trade policy. Especially the UK is really the sort of historically a little bit different from Japan, but very much pro-market economy. I think that when the UK and Japan had alliance, but on the other hand, the approach will be different. How do you think this kind of the core bottom difference of the ideology and approach? Thank you.
Thank you. And I will add to that I note that you mention preferential government procurement in your speech, which is, of course, contrary to the free market principles that are being discussed.
Thank you very much. Regarding CPTPP, first and foremost, for one, I would say that the UK has embodied the universal values to the world. And for the UK to join the CPTPP, it means that we have now additional, the strongest partner has been joined in the CPTPP. That is how we welcome the UK. In terms of when the UK has been instrumental in creating rules, so we can work together to create new rules for the new world. CPTPP can go beyond the rules of WTO. It would be WTO plus. It will be making rules for the new era. Therefore, in that regard, the UK's presence is enormous. Furthermore, high level must be maintained. That is how the UK has joined the CPTPP. It isn't as if we had to loosen the rules. That was not the case. UK joined representing the high rules for the 21st century in acceding to the CPTPP. That is very meaningful. So we have been able to show that high standard can be maintained. So this will be an important benchmark for acceding to the CPTPP, and that will be evaluated for the aspirant economies. And based on that, market access to be reduced, and rules must be complied with. That is how high standard can be maintained. And therefore, as trusted partners, we can establish a supply chain. In that regard, we will have a geopolitical expansion with the joining of the UK in the CPTPP. So the significance is enormous. Furthermore, regarding the market economy and economic policy, there could be differences in the core, was the question mentioned as well. And there have been different discussions. The neoliberalism or the market laissez-faire market is appropriate, or there are also some camps calling for a need to government to intervene. There have been different camps, and depending on the times, the government policies have also been different depending on the history of the countries. But the basic flow is that the market must be emphasized. The market mechanism must be valued. However, the environment, as well as other factors that cannot be decided by the market, must be considered as well. CNN and BBC has been talking about the flooding in the world. So we have to deal with climate change. We cannot leave everything to the market. There will be need for preference given to what is more environmentally friendly. Market may fail, and external economy may fail. There is policy needed to overcome these challenges. There will be different levels of intervention, but I think that is common, especially in the area for investment in green, investment to deal with climate change for the world as well as for the people. All of the world is significant. And there are different fiscal policy discourse, but this is becoming the mainstream. Branchell's book is a good case in point. Many economists are saying that we are departing from not just a focus on the market economy, but greenery, as well as having some constraints, as well as involvement of government should be recognized. I think discourse is changing.
Time, because the Minister has an important bilateral meeting with the new British Secretary for Energy and Net Zero, which will take place in this building in a few minutes. So I'm going to close with one general question to answer, to finish, because I think it connects together with your excellent speech. You talked about de-risking and the point that we must not be overly dependent on one particular country. For the sake of this audience, can you give us your definition of what is too much dependence? How do you tell when you're overly dependent? Because we need to put this into practical operation. Do you and your colleagues have a way of a framework to decide how much is too much?
As you have rightly mentioned, As I mentioned in my speech, decoupling is difficult because we are so interdependent globally. But de-risking is important. We have to manage the risk, and this process in our daily lives. There are products that supply is not a problem. We don't have to check the volume for that. But whether in automobiles or in telecommunications or life science, for important industry, indispensable industry products, which is existential, which will have an impact on our very existence, must be managed in the appropriate manner. In the case of Japan, there are different data evaluation, and we are identifying such products. We have 11 important products and suppliers, and for these products, we will manage and control to produce domestically or produce with the joint development with the like-minded countries with similar values. That is the approach we will be taking. Therefore, it depends on the countries, but overall, whether it be semiconductors or batteries, for these products, in the case of Japan, we have a certain calculation method to decide what is too dependent. And we want to de-risk, reducing the risk on any particular country. We want to work with the UK in this regard.
Thank you very much, Minister. That's very clear, and that's under the terms of your Economic Security Act from 2022, I think. But let me close by thanking you very warmly for sparing time from your visit to the Middle East and now London to come to IISS, for sharing your views with our audience. And we ask you to come back again. You will always be welcome at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, and we very much welcome the opportunity always to work together with the government of Japan. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the audience.